That's not a documentary about something that had happened, then you want to they might want to like embellish on what had happened. But so anyways, that's like a whole thing. So this is a story, the true crime story of the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard, or Dee Dee Blanchard. And it kind of starts like way back, so I'm gonna go like kind of from the beginning. So Dee Dee had a daughter. She was a little bit older. I think she was like in her, not older to have a kid, but like the normal age to have a kid. I think she was like in her mid-20s. And she had gotten pregnant with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was 17 only. So she had her daughter with her high school boyfriend. I think his name is Rod or Ron or something like that. Or he was in high school, she wasn't in high school. And so they decided to get married, as you know, good Christians would. And they had a daughter, and her name is Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And pretty soon after, I think within a year of them having Gypsy Rose, they ended up getting a divorce. Because having a baby when you're 17 is maybe not the best reason to marry someone. I don't know. Anyways, so they had Gypsy, and according to Gypsy's father, Dee Dee was telling him that by like 3 months old she was saying Gypsy is having sleep apnea, Gypsy's having seizures, Gypsy needs to go to the doctor, this and that. So it turns out that Gypsy, had a lot of illnesses that she was being treated for, the sleep apnea. Pretty soon after that, she was using a walker, and then eventually when she was using the walker, it turned into that she was using the wheelchair. So she could not walk, and she was being treated for cancer, muscular dystrophy. She had a feeding tube, so she couldn't, supposedly, she couldn't swallow, so she had to be fed through, primarily was eating through her feeding tube. And then in the midst of all of this, Dee Dee moved her and Gypsy away from Gypsy's dad and from Dee Dee's family, who they were originally living with. And they moved and they lived in somewhere a little bit further away, because according to Dee Dee, what she would tell everyone is that Rod is basically like low life, deadbeat dad, and that her family was abusive to her. So she was running away with her sickly child. And so obviously, everybody felt really bad for them. And then on top of all that, their place that they were living got destroyed in Hurricane Katrina. So then they were actually built a house by Habitat for Humanity. It's a really cute, like, all pink house, which is like kind of perfect if you're thinking about, like, you know, a daughter and a mom only living together, like two girls living in their pink house. So anyways, all of this, you're probably like, what? How did this end in murder? If you've never heard of this before. So what happened was in 2015, in 2015, Dee Dee was found by the police, stabbed to death. Dee Dee and Gypsy had a lot of people that loved them a lot, that worried about them, that cared about them, you know. Obviously, when you look at their story, they've had such a hard life, so people wanted to be there for them. So they had, you know, a following on Facebook. They had actually won, Gypsy Rose had won Springfield's, like, Child of the Year or whatever. So they, you know, they were well known in the area. Everybody, all their neighbors knew, you know, obviously Habitat for Humanity came in and built them this home. So, you know, and all the neighbors pitched in. That's kind of, you know, how that works. They all helped them, and they were super nice. And Gypsy has, like, this little, like, baby voice, which I think, you know, makes her more sympathetic and everything like that. So, what had happened was there was a post on Facebook from Dee Dee and Gypsy's shared Facebook account, and it said, I'm pretty sure it said something like, the bitch is dead. And then, like, and then people are like, did you get hacked? Like, what happened? You know, you see that and you're probably thinking, my brain at least would automatically go to, like, okay, somebody is, like, Facebook pranking this person, or they got hacked by someone or something like that. And then someone had commented on it and then said, like, that they killed that fat bee and raped her daughter or whatever. So really, like, intense, disgusting stuff to say. So then people start getting really concerned, and they went and eventually, like, the police were able to get a warrant on the house, and they went in and they found that Dee Dee Blanchard was murdered, and that Gypsy was nowhere to be found. So people were like, holy cow, like, this is a sick girl out there. She's in a wheelchair, defenseless, and she's been kidnapped by some murderer. Like, that's, I mean, what? That is, like, you know, that's, like, the worst thing that you could hear ever. So people started freaking out, and the search for her was really intense, and people were like, okay, well, or the police was like, okay, we can find out where the Facebook post was from. So the Facebook post led them to Nick Godejohn. The Facebook post led them to Nick Godejohn. And they went to his place and they found that he was there with Gypsy. But what was surprising was that Gypsy was actually walking, and she had, like, a little bit of hair at that time. So, like, obviously, you know, supposedly she had leukemia, but like, her hair was growing back. So they realized that things were not all as they had seemed, right? Come to find out that everything that Dee Dee and Gypsy had been saying was a lie. Their house was destroyed in Katrina, but ever since Gypsy was a baby, she was actually healthy. She was healthy the entire time. There was nothing wrong with her. But her mom and her, it wasn't like some big, conspiracy where they were working together. She was like, this all started when Gypsy was like 3 months old. So obviously Gypsy didn't know anything about it. In fact, her mom had lied to her and made her think that she was sick. And even up until, basically, even after all this stuff went down, Gypsy found out even more about herself that she didn't know, because her mom had just lied her entire life. Her mom was actually going to doctors and telling the doctors that, Gypsy had this, that, and the third, and the doctors were treating Gypsy as if she had these symptoms, which she had never had. So the mom would say, my daughter's been having seizures. She would get anti-seizure medication, which she, didn't need, because she wasn't actually having seizures. But, they're, of course, asking mom. They're not asking a little child. And then as she got older and could, potentially speak up for herself, Dee Dee would preface the conversations with, oh, she's mentally not capable of having these kind of conversations. Even to Gypsy's dad, who would, he would call every once in a while, and he was paying child support. So, her whole sob story of, like, this is like she has a deadbeat dad who's not, like, involved, like, that she would tell Gypsy and all their neighbors and everybody. It was just another ploy to make people feel bad for her, because the dad was, like, trying. And he said, he wanted to call her on her 18th birthday and be like, wow, you're 18. And mom was like, don't tell her that she's 18. Like, mom, that Dee Dee had been lying to Gypsy about how old she was. So when everything went down, Gypsy didn't even know how old she was. She thought she was like 3 years younger than she actually was. So, anyways, come to find out that that mom had been tricking the doctors, and at a certain point, I guess Gypsy realized that not everything was 100%. Like, mom was keeping her in the wheelchair, whereas she didn't need to be in a wheelchair, but Gypsy did think she had some of these things that her mom was saying. At least that's what, it seems like. So how was mom doing this? She was doing it by basically forcing her, with threats of physical violence and also emotionally manipulating her. She was medically, abusing her, because she would give her medication that she didn't need, which caused side effects, really bad. In fact, all of Gypsy's teeth fell out from her anti-seizure medication, which she was on for no reason. And she was just very suffocating. She wouldn't let her grow up, because her growing up would mean her maybe not being 100% on board with this plan, or even if she was, still pretending to be sick, it would mean that she would get less sympathy, probably. So Gypsy started sneaking around to talk online and meet guys online, and that is where she met Nick Godejohn. And Nick himself is a very unstable person. He claims he has multiple personality disorder. He's diagnosed with being autistic, which like could, you know, I don't want to say that because like I have close family members, close immediate family members who are on the spectrum, and like I don't think that being autistic means that you are capable of murder, but in this case I think that he was very set on getting together with Gypsy and knew that the mom was in the way of it. And people on the spectrum, if you know anybody on the spectrum, when they get their mind set on something, it's very hard to not let it happen. But basically what had happened was that Gypsy asked him to come and kill Dee Dee, and he did that. She got everything set up for him outside of the house and hid it in the bathroom while he did it, so she didn't have any actual physical involvement with it. She says that she was in the bathroom covering her ears during it. She didn't want to hear it. But then her and Nick had ran away together. And then, according to the show, which I don't know if this is actually how it happened, but she was like getting so paranoid and nervous that she really wanted somebody to find her body. And she felt like guilty, like that her mom's body was potentially just like rotting there or whatever. So that's why she made that Facebook post saying those disgusting things. So I don't know, this story like has so many twists and turns that it like makes you really, you don't know who to root for here. Like obviously nobody should, you know, be killing their parent. But obviously Dee Dee had some really bad mental issues, which caused her to want to pretend that all this was happening, and make her daughter sick, basically, so that they would get love and attention. And that is called, it diagnosed mom with, is called Munchausen's by proxy. And it's basically where moms will pretend that their child is sick in order to get that like love and attention and everything. What ended up happening with the trial, just quickly, is that, you know, everybody was able to see that Gypsy was being abused, but also not able to kind of not think about the fact that she did have a part in killing her mother. So Gypsy got 10 years, which, I mean, it's bad, but also 10 years for murder is not as bad as it could have been. They were looking at the death penalty, originally seeking it for her. So, and for Nick Godejohn, he got life in prison. And that's the story of Dee Dee and Gypsy. You know, Gypsy now, like, she says that she wishes that it hadn't happened, but she recognizes that her mom was very abusive to her. When she got arrested, she didn't even know her real age. She thought she was younger than she was. And yeah, the fact that Hurricane Katrina had destroyed a lot of her medical records, like, helped the mom even more, because she could just make up this, that, and the third had happened. But a big problem about it was like that a lot of the doctors just trusted the mom. But like, what else are doctors supposed to do? If you say your child has a seizure, I mean, sometimes there's no way to test for things unless like you actually see them happening. So I don't know, but obviously a lot of doctors dropped the ball with this one too, and she had just fallen through the cracks so many times in order to get this to happen. And whenever, like, basically something would happen where they would kind of get caught, mom would just explain it away. Like, she ran away at one point before all this had happened, and she, like, went to her neighbor's door, and then the mom was like, she doesn't know what she's saying. She's mentally, you know, like, she's not mentally, like, capable. And everybody just believed mom, which I think happens a lot, you know. So kind of a sad story, kind of a weird, like, thing, because you don't really know who is the bad guy in this situation. Like, obviously the mom is bad. She clearly had some mental issues and took advantage of a lot of people, which is also bad. And, you know, maybe people won't be as trusting to the next person who is sick, which is also bad. But also, you know, everybody in this is suffering in some way. So, and I don't really think, you know, I don't know how else it would have ended. I think maybe a doctor could have stepped in and it would have ended not as bad as it did. But yeah, this story is kind of a bummer, so sorry. But yeah, I've just been like, you know, everybody's stuck at home, so I've been at home and I watched that and I wanted to, and I thought about it and I was like, oh, well, I could tell this story, true crime story in my ASMR. So I hope that you found it interesting at least, and you could definitely do your own research on it. It's pretty interesting. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Hope you're having a good night. Take care.